Good morning, brothers and sisters. I have talked about Brother Lawrence yesterday. He was a brother in Christ who was a few hundred years ago. He was an ordinary person and uneducated, but he has affected many Christians' lives, for he has a very close relationship with God. He could enjoy the presence with God from morning to night. His conversation with people and many of his letters have edited into a book. He has shared how he practiced the close union with God, how to practice it out and enjoy with God. One of the aspects he has mentioned, his relationship with God, the way of practicing how to be close to God. He said, the shortest way is to love God. The meaning was that for our everyday lives, we have a pure intention to love God. This is the shortcut how he walk with him and enjoy his presence. Whatever things Lawrence do, in his heart there is only one intention, and that is to love God. This is how he enjoy his presence with God and how he could be so joyous in his working life. Brothers and sisters, if you want to have a very close relationship with God, if you want to enjoy God's presence from morning to night, this is one of the very important attitudes. The things we intended to do in our lives is because of loving Him. Dear brothers and sisters, may you be a person with a pure intention. You will be a person whom are close to God. Dear brothers and sisters, the verses I'd like to share with you is in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 3. And it says like this, "But if anyone loves God, he is known by God." How precious that if a person loves God, he is known by God. If a person did the tiny matters for God, he is known by God. It means that God is watching over you and me. He knew and He remembered in His heart. How precious that God sees man's heart. God knows how much you bear for Him, and He knew all your hardship that you encounter out of the intention of loving Him. Anything out of the good intention of loving Him, God knows. He especially says that God knows. I believe God also treasured that we love Him, and He was touched as well. God respects every single piece of your work for those who love Him. Brothers and sisters, it encourages us here that things, no matter big or small, which you did for God will not be in vain. Even though the task like brushing your teeth, washing your face, going to school, going to work, or doing the housework, though you didn't do much, but if you lived your days by loving Him, God knows, and He will reward you. There was a story happened in the middle of the 19th century. There was a young man who was in a ship in Liverpool of London. He was waving goodbye to his mother. He needed to go for a long journey. His mother couldn't help herself and burst into tears. This young man was only 21 years old. He was a missionary. He has learned medicine and had a simple luggage heading to China, a place he has never been, a place where he sacrificed his life there. In order to prepare for the trip, This young lad trained himself physically. The soft bed became the bed with the hard board, controlling his diet, and learned the difficult language, which is Chinese. When he arrived in China, the local Chinese people did not trust him. He had to endure the despite and the unfriendly look from the Chinese. Even worse was that the infectious disease which he suffered, smallpox, chest infection, diarrhea. His life was threatened by those diseases daily. He committed his life in China. He dressed like a Chinese and even had pigtail hair. As time goes by, he was accepted and has gained respect from the local Chinese. He was humble and willing to give without any condition. He has led many to know God and his unconditional love and sacrifice. He even has a Chinese name, and this young man was James Hudson Taylor. He has a famous saying, "If I had 1,000 pounds, China should have it. And if I had 1,000 lives, China should have them." Brothers and sisters, even a foreigner has such a great love and sacrifice for China. It is because he wants to love God in return. The love of God has compelled him and give himself and his family to China. The 5th generation of Mr. Hudson Taylor is still serving China nowadays. You can see if a person's intentions is compelled by the love of God, his life is the most glorious and shining. Brothers and sisters, remember, if a person loves God, his love will not be in vain. God knows his heart. May we strive together and give ourselves for the will of God to the end.